Some comments? I really do. I like some comments. Don't care about you. I like some comments.
Chimichanga then, innit? Listen, I've got to say I'd never heard of this three-parter either before I picked it up, to be honest. But at a bundle of all three for a fiver, less 50%, whatever that works out at, plus the front cover of issue 1 looking something like this, I figured it was worth a punt. Now, as with most travelling circuses, certainly these days, what you have here is an overly dramatic, anxiety-ridden talking fish, a mumbling, somewhat indifferent clown, and a fairly standard goat, though all that good stuff is for some reason no longer tooting the flutes of the never satisfied, ever ungrateful young folk these days with their levitating caps and hip V-neck sweaters need more than that. Much more. The circus folks' luck is resolutely in, though, due to a somewhat obvious plot development, where the young heroine of the piece, aka Lula the Bearded Lass, swaps some of her excess chin hair to a local witch in return for a smart-looking egg that hatches into a giant monster effort. Yeah, that old chestnut. Still, job's a good un. Or it is for a bit, until the witch sets a potion that fair fettles her ferocious flatulence and subsequently sells out to dun dun dun, an unscrupulous pharmaceutical conglomerate who soon greedily max out the witch's brew and have to come rocking up sharpish to snatch away Lula, beard and all. Cue the rest of the beautiful freaks, them who give two hoots any road, scratching the collective noggins over how best to bust yon Lula out and get her back home where she belongs. And I've got to say, as plans for helping a bearded lass escape from a dastardly medical company go, it's a doozy. So we're over and out in a jiffy really, and it's right enough as these things go. I guess some might argue that there's the odd bit in there that suffers slightly from the old trying too hard to be more quirky, thus ending up less quirky pitfall. But not me. Not really. Not I'd go back to, I don't reckon. But it were fun enough while it lasted. It's right enough. Now then, Catweazle. Freaked me out as a kid, did Catweazle. Proper freaked me out. To the point where not only were I getting him confused with the dude out of Jeffrey O'Toole, thus spoiling Top of the Pops for my grandma, I also mixed him in with an unfortunate neighbour of ours who had done absolutely nothing wrong, beyond growing a relatively unkempt beard and dressing in the type of gear I imagine Catweazle might be rocking these days. Back in late 70s this were. Still, I read his misadventures every chance I got, as my granddad helped me pile up my old looking back issues off Flea Market. And going over them again, I'm more than struck by the notion of what could possibly freak out young minds than aught else really. As Catweazle, who, for them no ignorami who might not know, is like this old wizard guy, transported into the modern day from the Middle Ages or whenever, and then proceeds to get confused by modern day palavers such as tape recorders and coffee percolators and whatnot, while inadvertently upsetting taxi drivers and all that sort of good stuff. Catweazle knows he's a man out of time though, and spends his lion's share trying to get back home. Crosses paths with the odd spooky looking character along the way, but goodness knows what I were on for this to bother me as much as it did. Because it did. Because I mean, it were about this time when I was staying up late at my grandma and granddad's on Thorn Street, watching fairly scary stuff on BBC of a weekend that saw more than its fair share of blood-curdling kit from Hammer and Amicus and whatnot, mixed in with a bunch of Universal Monsters stuff, none of which never really seemed to bother me at all. Certainly not like Catweazle did. He got in my head, did Catweazle. I think he's still there. Right, now before you all start, I know I covered another book by Seth recently. I do know that, thanks. But when I'd finished that, there were only one thing I wanted to read after that, which were more Seth. So here we are. And it's exactly what I did when I first read the pair of these books back yon. And I guess I dug that so much I wanted to give it another do. Not like first time though, is there? That's what they reckon, ain't it? But with right sort of stuff you can still tap into something special. And there's absolutely no doubt that that's what this is. Again, stylistically, it's flipping top drawer, man. Unfurling page by page like a Boss cartoon directed by Edward Hopper. Showing you what it needs, what's important, but leaving you wondering about what exists beyond the individual pictures to help give credence to the world that you were allowed a peek into. Ecky peck, maybe I am turning into a bit of a Seth fanboy, eh? I knew it'd happen one day. But it's hard not to when you're faced with something so consuming. I guess if you're one of them hard work types looking for a story synopsis or whatever, then ostensibly you could say it's about some old dude ruining the downfall of his family business. And it is about that. Casting his whimsical eye on the inevitable transition between fans and air conditioning. And it is about that. In the same way that Ulysses is about a day in the life of Leopold Bloom. 'Cause, I mean, like most stuff, man, it's the singer rather than the song that really matters, innit? It's interwoven themes of life and death, success and failure, hopes and regrets and acceptance and all that big boss stuff that comes into play along the way. And it feels honest and natural in its method. Never too showily shoehorned in like a few well-known works. The people depicted here are more than two-dimensional. Characters who are capable of doing good and bad things. Capable of eliciting sympathy as well as scorn, as we reflect through them on missed opportunities and youthful ambitions well past their sell-by date. Time and tide and all that jazz. I mean, judge folk if you want to, if it makes you feel any better, but just make sure that you're judging yourself and all along the way, because that's a lot harder to do, especially if you happen to be as hard on yourself as you are on other folk sometimes. This, like all great stuff, don't really pass judgment. Don't point too many fingers, just holds up one or two mirrors here and there. And any judgment is left down to you. It's different classes, this. Absolute belter.
some comments.